Very excited to welcome you to today's Quick Start webinar on blogging. A couple quick items of note. We are recording today's session so that we can share it later via YouTube and also on the website that you registered for today, wordpress.com/webinars. Feel free to check out that schedule. We'll be covering WooCommerce tomorrow. We'll have a version in Spanish on Friday. And then on Monday, we'll start again with the Quick Start 101 webinar. So please join us as many times as we can possibly help you. A Zoom note, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask questions throughout today's webinar. We have myself and we also have our colleague Lai. We are in the Q&A answering your questions, and we'll save some for Austin for later on in the webinar. Can't thank you enough for joining us today. And with that, I will proudly introduce and turn it over to my colleague, Austin. Take it away, Austin.
Thank you. Well, as the introduction said, my name's Austin. I'm a happiness engineer with WordPress.com. And for the last 3 years, I've been able to help people with their websites. And today we're going to talk about blogging. I'm just going to share my screen and switching this over. There we go. Okay, so I have a test site that I've built right here, and I'm going to open it on a new tab. And so here we can see test kitchen test site. I just put in a very simple theme, and I've swapped out the site title with test kitchen here and filled in a little bit of information about our site. Short introduction here. This is just a link that brings us to the blog page. And then all the images you see here are actually from our free photo library provided by Pexels. And I've created just a few posts here. And today we'll walk through starting kind of from scratch with what might be a very simple post. This site is geared towards recipes, but everything that we go over today could just as easily be used for really any topic, be it a trip, a technical blog, perhaps news and updates for a business. And so let's get started. This is all created using a WordPress.com personal plan. This would also work with a free plan, premium plan, business plan, or e-commerce. Today we'll be working on posts, and that's within site. This is where we're going to access any of our content that we're working with. Here under pages, you can see these are all the pages we have listed. Posts underneath, I've created a few sample posts. Once again, these are all from our free photo library at Pexels. Each of these just a short description in the title, and really just kind of to fill out content. I'm going to click on drafts here. And here I've created a post already called pasta, and click on this. And inside of here, we can see a very simple post. This is probably how a lot of our first blogs looked. Certainly, this is how some of my first posts look. I gave it a title here. And then down below, this is actually just filler content. It's food-related lorem ipsum. And we're just going to kind of go over how we can take this post and really bring this to the next level. So introducing rich text elements and making this just more visually appealing in general. A good place to start at the top would be with the title here. So initially, I gave it a title of pasta, but it could be difficult to rank highly for such a vague term like pasta, but we can make this more specific. So for example, maybe this is low-fat pasta with mushroom sauce. We can add in some keywords here. Maybe we're looking for people who are looking for mushroom dishes, people who are looking for low-fat recipes. So I'm just going to add in that information here. Fat pasta with mushroom sauce. And so now that we have a more descriptive title, let's make sure that our permalink, the link that we use to get to this particular post, reflects that. So you can see here when I first created it, I gave it the title pasta, and that's that URL slug that we're seeing. You can see it says bold text right here. And so let's make this a little bit more specific. I'm just going to paste in our title here, and that's going to fill in an updated URL for us. Below that here, we have the category section. Right now, it's using the default category of uncategorized, but let's add in a category for this. I've created a few already for that demo content, but our low-fat pasta with mushroom sauce probably doesn't fit into any of these. So let's make a new category, and then click on Add New Category here. And then here, I'm going to give it a title like pasta. I'm going to click to add this new category. And so WordPress.com has added this category. It's already selected it for me here. And now I'm going to uncheck uncategorized. So now we have just one category here. A brief note, if we did have a particular dish that fell into multiple categories, we'd be able to select those, as you can see here. But for today, we'll just use one category, pasta. And next, we're going to scroll down, and under tags, we'll add in some more specific tags here. So we're talking about low-fat pasta. I might write in low-fat, and I'm just going to press the comma button on my keyboard, and that's going to add in that first tag. After that, I might put in mushroom, oops, and pasta. And here you can add additional tags. Like I said, we're working with food, but just as easily, this could be categories of fashion or travel or industrial, really anything that kind of organizes this particular topic. And same thing with tags here. In general, we like to have maybe a handful of broad categories that sort of talk about the overall idea, and then tags being more specific keywords that you may touch on within the post itself. Below this here, we have the featured image. This image here is what would appear if we were to share a link to this post onto social networks such as Facebook or Twitter. If you've ever shared a link on there, you see typically there's a title, there's a URL, which is this permalink right here, and then usually a small thumbnail image. And this is where we get that thumbnail image from. So I'm going to click here. And I've already added in a few images, once again, from that free photo library. Let's go with this one here and click to insert that. And then down below, we also have this excerpt. So, talking about sharing the social media, post titles, permalinks, and then that thumbnail image. In addition to all those elements, there's typically a section where you might have a little blurb of text kind of explaining a little bit about that post. And so this is where you would enter that in. The reason it's marked optional here is most search engines and social networks nowadays are pretty clever. They'll pull in the first few lines of text. The only downside there is it may end mid-sentence, or maybe it takes you a sentence or two to kind of get into the meat of what you're talking about. And so in that case, you may just want to write in a short 1 or 2 sentence summary. And the reason we fill in all this information, one for categories and tags, is it'll help to organize your content on your site. Later we'll talk about adding in category pages where we can see a page that shows only posts of that category. So in this example, only posts that have the category of pasta. But in addition to that, search engines pay attention to this information here. So search engines see, all right, this is about pasta. This is involving low fat, mushroom, pasta. Here's a featured image associated with it. Within the excerpt, here's a short description. So basically, by helping search engines to gather this information here, they'll help us by suggesting our content. So we've kind of talked about sort of the data behind it, but let's look from more of a visual standpoint here. Right now, we just kind of have a block of text. It might be very interesting, as far as the content itself, but visually, there's not a lot going on here. So let's add in some content really to kind of make this more visually appealing. What I like to do is I'll typically add in my headings first. So here I can break up my content and click on the plus. We can see here using the block editor that heading is available, but even if it wasn't, I'd be able to type in heading here to search for it, and WordPress is going to find that block for me. So I'll click to add in the heading. And let's say here, maybe I want to start with just an overview. Maybe I'll talk about what pasta is, or what the kind of the basis of my post is going to be. And then below that, maybe we'll add in another heading here. And so another way we can do this is by typing / and then you'll see it presents a few different blocks. And I can start to type in heading, and it's going to suggest that heading block for me. And here, let's put in maybe a history. Here I'll talk about kind of the history of this dish, what it means to me. And then a little bit further down, let's get into the actual recipe itself. So I'm gonna hit enter and click on the plus to add a block. We can see heading is here under most used. So I'm gonna click on this. And here, let's call this the recipe itself. And below that, let's put in some ingredients. And so rather than displaying those as a paragraph, let's do that as a list. And so here we see the list appearing, but I could also search for it up here. So list, And let's say we'll keep this simple: pasta, tomato sauce, and there'll be more. And in addition to having this within the recipe, maybe we want to give this a subheading. So these are the ingredients. And press enter, and I'm going to start to type in heading by pressing / and typing in heading. The block editor finds the heading block for us. Click on this, and right now it's using H2. It's the second highest level. Typically your post or page title will be an H1, and then in sort of decreasing importance here, H2 all the way through to H6. So we're using H2 for our recipe, but within this, let's have a subheading for ingredients. So we'll make that an H3. You can see that it's switched here. I could also have changed it from here, and we'll call this ingredients. And here we have our ingredients. And press enter again. And down here, let's have maybe the steps itself. So I'll do a heading, and I'm going to change this from an H2 to an H3, because all of this sort of will fit within this overarching heading of recipe. So ingredients, and let's say preparation. Here we go. And then down below, we can make this a little bit easier to read. So let's say maybe each of these sentences here is a different step. I'm just going to press enter, and we'll be able to see that we've now broken it into individual steps here. I'm going to switch this from a paragraph to a list. And so you'll notice here, I'm able to switch it to a few different blocks. I wouldn't be able to change this into an image, but since this is text, I can change this into other formats of text. So I'm going to click on list. And here, because these are steps, there's actually an order to it. So rather than an unordered list with bullet points, I'm going to use an ordered list here. And we have the first one, and then down below, second step and continuing. And so without even touching any images, we've been able to make this already just more interesting by adding in headings and mixing in different kinds of content, such as subheadings, unordered lists, and ordered lists. But this is all about food, so let's put in some delicious food pics. I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to click on the plus here, and let's put in an image. So I'm going to choose image, and here it's going to give me a few options. I can upload images directly from my computer. I can click on the media library and see other images that I've already added, and I can insert from URL in case I have these images stored maybe somewhere else online. So I'm going to click on media library, and here we can see we have some of those images already. I'm going to bring in this post image here. And here you can see this is a free image provided by Pexels. And maybe I'll adjust the size a little bit, make it a little bit smaller here. Down below, maybe with an overview, let's add in an image. Maybe we could do a few images here. I'm going to do a gallery. And same thing, we can upload images from our computer or the media library. And here I'm just going to pull in, let's pull in these two images. And I'll click to insert. And now we can see them side by side. Additionally, we can also add more images below. And if we click away, you can see what this looks like with those images also, courtesy of Pexels here. Within the history, maybe I want to put in an image of my my father. Maybe this was his recipe. I'll click on image here and media library, and here we go. Here he is preparing the dish. And so you can see, we started with just a series of paragraphs, and it kind of looked, well, the content itself might have been engaging. Now we've really been able to kind of bring new life to it, adding in these images, these headings, a gallery here, and various ordered lists and unordered lists. So I'm going to publish this post now. Click on publish here. And this is just going to bring up options here, whether or not I want to set it as public or private, or publish it immediately, or perhaps schedule it for a day in the future. Maybe Sunday is my day to cook, and I'll do 5 recipes and schedule them to go out every few days going forward. That'd be just a matter of clicking on this option and then choosing a day and a time. But we're going to stick with immediately. I'm going to click on publish. Let's see. Oh no. One moment here. Let me close out of this and see if we can get this to pop back up. Let me save this as a draft. And I'm just going to close out of this. And let's just open this back up. All right, so I see the draft. I'm going to open it back up, and let's take a look if I'm able to make this published. Let's see, restore this back up and published. There we go. And so a few things we were actually able to touch on here. One, we ran into an error and I was able to back out of it. I don't know if you saw, also we got a dialog box that popped up and said that it wasn't able to save those changes. But luckily, WordPress.com saved a copy for us. And so when I was able to open up this particular post again, I was able to click on the option to open up that autosave, and I was able to bring in all of our content again. So it is uploaded and saved. We go to our test kitchen and refresh the page. And so down here, we're able to see our options. I see a breakfast scramble, a butter croissant, and our low-fat pasta dish. I do see the featured images missing though. So let's take a look at that post. And I just want to make sure that was added correctly. Featured image, and I will click here to set that. This is the one that we chose. I'll click on insert and click on update here. And I'm gonna go back and refresh the page. And there we go. Now we can see low-fat pasta with mushroom sauce, and we have our featured image appearing. So perhaps the next thing I might want to do with this would be adding in a category page, because remember we added the category of pasta. So I'm going to go back to our dashboard, and this will be the final step for us. Click on Design, Customize here, and we're going to look at the menu real quick. And so on the left-hand side, we'll have some customization options. Right-hand side, we'll see our particular website. Then click on Menu, Primary Menu. That's the one we're working on up here. And then you can see this is how the menu is laid out, each of these being a drop-down, which we can see within Recipes blog. And I'm going to click on Add Item. And rather than choosing from a page, I'm going to go down to Categories, and we should see our pasta category. So I'll click on that to add. And now I want to move this into our drop-down up here. So I'll click on Reorder and moving pasta up and then in and click on Done. And so now pasta's there. I'm going to save our changes. And if we go to pasta here, this is going to bring us to a page where we should see only posts of the category of pasta. And that is where that would live. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Hey, Austin, that was fantastic. Really, really good. Making me hungry, getting me thinking about dinner. And then as I look at some of the other posts that you have drafted, I'm already thinking about my second breakfast, which is coming right up here.
Happy to hear it.
Really, really good questions coming in. A lot of similar questions coming in. Well, Austin, we'll tackle a couple questions about images because there were some follow-on questions about your excellent use of imagery. And then we'll zoom out and talk about some of the questions that we had about kind of blogging best practices versus overall website management. And then there's a couple specific kind of feature level questions that we can tackle as well. So thank you everyone for some great questions. We'll tackle as many as we can. And then whatever we don't get to, we'll follow up. We'll send out, again, we'll send out this video after today's webinar as well. Before we dive into imagery, Austin, you showed us when you zoomed back out to your list of drafted posts, and then you looked at it again and you published. Someone asked, is it your best practice to preview your post before you click publish? How do you do that personally?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. You know, it's kind of the idea of measure twice, cut once. So any way that I can kind of take a look at my post before I publish it, I would recommend it. You can click on preview up here, and this is going to load a version of your post, how it would appear on the site. And this beautiful featured image at the top. Scrolling down, we're able to see our overview. This is the gallery we added, our history. Below this, our H2 recipe heading, and then our H3 subheadings for ingredients and preparation, as in ordered list and unordered list.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, let's dive into images. There was some really good and some pretty related questions about images. So we'll start with this first one from Harriet, which was tell us more about the free image library. I think you showed us the Pexels option. Walk us through how you get to that, and then we'll get to some pretty image specific questions too.
Okay, yeah, so a few ways to do that. One, I can press enter here, click on the plus sign, choose an image. And then if I go to media library, here, these are all the images I've already uploaded or chosen from Pexels. But additionally, I can click up here to choose my media library source. And then here, this is the WordPress library. This is what we're looking at currently. If I had a Google Photos library connected, any of my Google Photo library, I'd be able to connect to here. And then the Pexels free photo library is listed right here. And click on this. And this will bring up some options here. And so what I had done is typed in pasta. And we should see maybe a few of those dishes that I brought in. But yeah, as an example, maybe I like the look of this one. So I'm gonna click to copy it to my media library. And now it's in my WordPress media library. And I can click on Insert, and I can see it down below here. And then on the right-hand side, I can make additional changes. Maybe I want this to be rounded, or maybe I want that default size. But there are other ways that you can get to it as well. And close out of this. And instead of going to Pages and Posts here, I can click on Media. And this is going to once again show us our WordPress.com media library. And I can click up here to choose my media library source. And here, click on Free Photo Library to view those pixel options again. And here we go, pasta dish. And we can copy in maybe some images here. And you can even copy in a few at a time if you'd like. So I've selected 2. I'll click on Copy to Media Library. And this will move these into my WordPress.com library. If I ever decide that I don't want to use these, I can also click on this trash can to remove them. This is going to bring up a dialog box just letting me know if I remove them from my media library. It'll also remove them from anywhere on my site that I've used them, including posts, pages, widgets.
Excellent, excellent. And the Pexels library, we've had a couple other questions about it. I believe there's over 40,000 photos available to our users, if not more. And it's available for all plans, correct, Austin? There's a couple questions about.
Yeah, it's available for all of them. I believe so, yeah.
Great. And just a couple more about images. There were some fantastic image questions. People kind of wanting your best practices on making images look as good as you did on your page. So Deborah, for example, asked, how did you get your thumbnails to be the same size? Mine are all different and they look messy. And I know there's a way that you can edit photos from right here in the library.
Yeah, so any of the ones for the post itself here, these are all actually just various size images. I pulled them right in. The reason these two are the same and both side by side like this is it's a gallery. And I've checked this option to crop the images so that they'll be the same size. And then additionally, right here, you see these are all the same size. Each of these images actually is a different size, but there's an option on the home page where we can crop them to be the same size. And I can show you that now. And click right here to go back to our dashboard. Then since we want to edit our home page, and then click on Pages. This is going to list all of our pages here. I want to edit the home page. It's called Home, but we also see down below that it's marked here to indicate that it is the home page. So then click on Home. And we can see here, this is the home page that I made these changes to. There was a banner image across the top, and then down below a post block with the 3 most recent images appearing there. Looks like it's just taking a moment to load. I have several large images appearing there, so that may be the issue. Let me see if I can get this to pop up. Otherwise, we may need to.
While you're waiting for that one, Ev asked, what's a good size for photos in your post? I prefer the big full bleed, full width, but I think it really depends on the rest of your layout, as you saw Austin using different types of layouts and just finding a photo size that looks good in the layout that you're actually using.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think here we kind of have a few different examples. So looking at this homepage, we have this big cover block here, and that's, as you mentioned, full bleed. This is going to take up, most of a browser window when you first come to the site. And for especially something like a recipe blog where you really are like marketing on, delicious, cheesy, melty, photos, you really do probably want those larger images. And then down below here, we have, kind of the opposite of that. We have 3 images across, whereas we just had 1 up here. So we are using a mixture of large and small images to keep things a little more visually interesting. And to answer that question, though, about cropping in those images, by default, it's set to uncropped here. And so what I did is I actually just selected this one, which is going to crop all these images into a square shape. There's additional options here for a portrait or landscape. And so that's how you can get these images within the blog posts to all be the same size.
Excellent. I have a feeling we could keep talking about images, but I'll shift gears a little bit here. A little bit higher level of a question. Leighton asked, if I insert, Liz asked, what's the difference between a blog and a website? That was where I was going to go next because we were kind of talking about this before the webinar.
Yeah, it was something that we were going to touch on. Yeah, so a website is typically page driven, but I mean, a website's really just like anything online with a domain pretty much. Whereas a blog is a website that contains blog posts. So the difference there, if you didn't want to have a blog, if this was all just going to be more of a website, then within pages, you would have, a number of pages here, maybe services, contact, about, team, that kind of thing. And then your post section down below may be relatively empty. What we're seeing now, though, a lot with websites, though, is a mixture of the two. And so I think this recipe blog is a good example. I might have a contact page where people could reach out to me or request recipes. Maybe have an about page kind of talking about, the history of my cooking, anything like that. And then on a separate page, all of my posts listed. And so we're able to see that in the menu, the home, about, and contact. And then inside of this website, a blog here with all the food posts that I've created.
Excellent. And hey, just a timekeeping warning where we only have a few minutes left. I'm going to let us go just a couple minutes over to get to a couple more questions. But again, we'll follow up to so many good questions as well after the webinar. Leighton asked, should I be blogging daily? And then Austin, there was a couple other general questions about building an audience up for your site. What else do you recommend as far as frequency of blogging and then building up the audience overall?
Yeah, so frequency of blogging, I think really comes down to how much time and effort you're going to put into specific posts. In general, I would say blogging more frequently is always going to be beneficial. So blogging maybe a few times a week if these are shorter posts. Or if these are longer posts that take you a long time to create, then maybe going to once a week or a less frequent amount of time. It also depends on the site itself. If it's mainly a site that has a blog, you may post less frequently. Whereas if this is mainly a blog first, like this recipe site, you really would want to blog frequently. And that being said, I would say try and find ways to lower that barrier to entry. I know it can be daunting creating new posts, knowing that you need to, maybe add in all of this content, but finding ways that you can either, borrow from previous posts or find a template for yourself. Like for example, with this particular site, let's say maybe I am going to be, posting a new recipe maybe a few times a week. I'll kind of decide some rules for myself. I'll give it a descriptive title. Each post is going to have an overview, a history. I'll do a recipe, ingredients, preparation. And knowing that my particular post is going to follow this exact format makes it a little bit easier so that the next time I create a new post, I can kind of pick up where I left off. And I know I already have a game plan and I'm not reinventing the wheel each time. Other options I would say as far as trying to build that audience, one, making your posts search engine friendly. So giving them those descriptive titles, putting in a category, selecting tags, putting in a featured image, maybe writing in that excerpt field, basically filling in this information here so that your site's going to be friendly and readable to search engines. In addition to that, sharing your content to social media. And so we have a few options there. If we go down to tools and click on marketing, in here we can go to connections. And here you can actually connect your site to a business Facebook page, to a Twitter account, LinkedIn or Tumblr, so that whenever you do create a new post, it's automatically shared to these social networks. Additional options being these social buttons down here. Right now this site is set to private, so we're not going to see those options. But clicking on adding sharing buttons, in addition to email and print, you would have options here to retweet this, share to Facebook, share to LinkedIn, Reddit. And so whenever you do create a new post, it'll have this box at the bottom where people can easily share your content with their family and friends and help to further build that community and that readership.
Excellent. Donna had asked about that specifically, social sharing. Just two more quick ones, Austin. A couple people asked about the editor that you're using, Blocks. I don't know if it's easy for you to show us probably how you switch over to Blocks if you're still using the WordPress.com, the WordPress Classic editor, but what do you recommend? And is there an easy way to guide people on how to switch over and use the block editor that you've been using today?
Yeah, definitely. And I would definitely recommend the new block editor. I'm using it on this site, but if, for example, you're still seeing the old editor, you'll see an option on the right-hand side that you can click on to learn more about the block editor, and then to actually switch over to the new block editor. And at that point, any existing post that you have will be using a classic block inside the block editor. So you would still have access to that classic editor. And then from there, there's actually an option where you can convert two blocks and it'll switch over that content for you. So automatically breaking up what already would have been a classic post into sections of paragraphs, image blocks, heading blocks, just like this. Um, and yeah, I would recommend the new editor. I find it's easier to work with. I can use these arrows here as well to move content around. So that could be really helpful if I'm trying to move maybe a certain section. Maybe I want to start with the history and then get into the overview below that. I'd be able to select this option and then using these arrows here, move it above or below.
Great. While you're there, can you show us highlighting the color of text? There was one question about highlighting the color of text, and it's easier now.
Yeah. So we could select the text like this, click on color settings, and then in addition to being able to choose the text color, you'd also be able to fill in a background color. If you wanted something like this. So as an example, actually, kind of thinking out loud here, this might be a good idea to add in maybe allergen info. Warning, this recipe may contain dairy, or this isn't a kosher recipe. Anything like that you'd want to make aware to your particular readers. But if you decide that you don't want this, you want to set this back to how it was before, you can click on clear, and that'll set that back to the black text on a white background. And you also have that option here for the overview, selecting this text, color settings, and then being able to select a text color. So as an example, maybe you've uploaded a logo to your site and you're using maybe a certain shade of blue. And so you'd be able to click on that and then set maybe this heading to be that same blue that kind of matches your logo and keeps your site on brand.
Excellent. Last question. There was a couple questions about tags versus categories. Why would you say it's important to add those tags and those categories? What's the difference between the two? And anything else you recommend along the lines of tagging and categorizing your posts?
Yeah, I would say, as an example, categories tend to be larger, more like overarching. So a typical lifestyle blog, maybe you would have, fashion, food, and travel as sort of these like three overarching categories. And then within your tags, you can kind of delve in a little bit more specifically. So in this case with pasta, maybe pasta is our overarching category. And then more specifically, within tags, we might put like the kind of sauce or maybe some of the key ingredients, things that people might be searching for, when they're looking for a recipe for their site. But yeah, another example being maybe the category is travel. Down here within the tags, maybe you'd put the countries that you wrote about in this post, or the cities you visited, or maybe some of the activities you did. But in general, tags are kind of playing a supporting role to categories. And for most posts, you'll have more tags than categories. But really just sort of a hierarchy for organizing them. And then of course, both of these pieces of information will be seen by search engines and can be used to suggest this post should someone be looking for things that match that category or tags or other content within the post itself.
Excellent. And what theme were you using, by the way, Austin? There was one or two questions about that. I had to sneak one more in.
Yeah, let's take a look here. So at any time, I can take a look and then go to Design and click on Themes. And right here across the top, we can see the current theme. And so I'm using the Hever theme. And if I want to know more information about this, why did I choose this? For example, maybe what can I do with this particular theme? I can click on Info. And on the right-hand side, it's going to show me an example of what this particular theme looks like with some demo content. Left-hand side, some helpful information for getting started. Setting up your homepage. Here are 5 steps. Adding content. If you wanted to recreate this page, we give you a template option to use this automatically. But if you did want to maybe build a similar page somewhere else, you could see we used a cover block, a group block. We'll show you exactly how we built this particular page here. A few helpful videos down below for getting started, either making a menu or a social links menu. And at the top, even an option that we can take a look at to try a live demo. We're already using this one, so it's not appearing here. But yeah, if we're looking at Barnsbury as an example, you'd be able to click on Open Live Demo. and then actually take a look at a theme, click around, really explore it. And yeah, maybe this would be a good one for a recipe site.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, it looks like we could keep going, but I'll promise a few things to our awesome audience today. Thank you all for so many great questions. We answered a good chunk of them, but a couple things. One, if you're in WordPress.com and you need support, you can go to the lower right of your screen and access support documents and actual support from our incredible happiness engineers from there. Of course, you can always go to WordPress.com/support. We will also do our best to answer some of these questions grouped up in our follow-up to today's webinar. You'll receive an email. The email also receives a survey, which we greatly appreciate your feedback. I'm getting some great feedback on this all-important topic of blogging that we'll definitely incorporate. You'll also get a discount code in that email, and you'll receive the playback from today's webinar. And then finally, just definitely want to encourage you to continue to join us each day. Tomorrow, we're going to talk WooCommerce, setting up e-commerce for your WordPress.com website. Friday, we'll do a Spanish language version of a Getting Started webinar. And then on Monday, we'll start over again with the Getting Started, payments on Tuesday, and we'll tackle blogging again next Wednesday. So we'll continue to do our very best to answer as many questions and, more importantly, give you as much access to our experts such as Austin and Lai. A huge thanks to Lai behind the scenes, answering tons of questions as we went. And Austin, thank you, sir, for both cranking up our appetites today and walking us through getting your blog going.
Happy to help.
Thanks, Austin, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.